There is a quiet pain known only to the pure-hearted, a pain that comes not from the faults of their own making, but from the cruelty of those who saw their goodness and sought to trample it underfoot. To be pure in this world is to carry a fragile light in a storm of shadows. The arrogant, seeing this light, do not marvel at its beauty. They fear it. They despise it. For the purity of one's soul is a mirror too bright, exposing their corruption, forcing them to confront their own decay. And in that confrontation, instead of repentance, they choose attack. You, dear listener, know this pain too well. You have walked through days where your kindness was met with scorn, where your trust was broken by the very hands you had once held open. You have given of your heart, only to have it tossed aside as though it were nothing more than dust beneath their feet. And each time you tried to understand why, you were met with silence, or worse, mockery. Have you not wondered why the arrogant seem for a time to rise higher while the pure are made to kneel? Have you not felt the weight of injustice pressing against your spirit, asking questions no answer could seem to satisfy? But here lies the truth, though it is cloaked in patience and hidden in the folds of time. The rise of the arrogant is but a temporary triumph. Like towers built on sinking sand, their height only ensures a greater fall. For God, who sees the secret places of the heart, does not allow the wicked to flourish endlessly. He is not blind to their deceit, nor deaf to the silent cries of those they harm. He watches, not with indifference, but with purpose. He permits the proud to climb only so that their collapse may be complete, their lesson unmissable. There is something terribly fragile about the strength of the arrogant. They mistake the delay of justice for its absence. They believe the silence of heaven is approval, when in truth it is the gathering of divine judgment. Like autumn leaves clinging desperately to a dying branch, they will soon discover that their season of dominance cannot last, and when the winds of reckoning begin to blow, no fortress of pride will shield them. But why does God allow the pure to suffer first? Why must those who live with clean hands and open hearts walk through valleys of shadows, while the arrogant bask in the sun? It is not abandonment, it is preparation. The soul is forged not in ease, but in adversity, and those who carry the weight of pain with grace are being readied for a greater glory. Their trials, bitter as they may seem, are the seeds of future triumphs. Meanwhile, the arrogant fatten themselves for the day of their downfall, blind to the traps they have set with their own cruelty. So, hold fast to this unshakable truth. No act of malice escapes the sight of the Almighty. No tear shed in silence is ignored. The arrogant who have built their empires upon the backs of the pure will find in due time that the very stones of their kingdom cry out against them. And when God moves, not if, but when, their collapse will echo louder than their rise ever did. Now, as we reflect on this path of suffering and justice, let us look closely at how the divine hand turns the story. Let us open our eyes to the subtle yet undeniable ways in which the arrogant are brought low and the pure are raised. These are not mere stories of men and their follies. They are the workings of a justice far higher, far deeper, and far more certain than any the world can offer. The weight of hidden cruelty always grows heavier. There is a strange, silent burden that the arrogant carry, though they themselves cannot feel it in the beginning. In the early days of their cruelty, they walk with their heads held high, laughing in the shadows of their wrongdoings. To them, their actions seem light, even insignificant. They believe they can mock, betray, and wound the innocent without consequence, because the pain they inflict is felt by others, not by them. But what they do not see, what they cannot see, is that every act of harm they commit adds to a weight they will one day be forced to carry alone. Imagine, A vessel slowly filling with poisoned water. Drop by drop, the arrogant pour their bitterness into this vessel, unaware that it is not the innocent who will be made to drink from it, but they themselves. With every lie told to tear down the pure, with every scheme crafted to humiliate and harm, they are adding to their own inevitable burden. And though time may pass without visible consequence, the vessel does not stop filling. Quietly, steadily, it swells under the weight of their cruelty. The pure-hearted, meanwhile, feel every blow in real time. Their nights are sleepless, their days clouded by confusion and sorrow. They carry questions heavy in their hearts. Why were they targeted? Why did their goodness attract such malice? Why did those they trusted twist the knife deeper rather than offering compassion? These questions burn silently within them, while the arrogant move freely, seemingly untouched by guilt or remorse. But here lies the hidden justice. Guilt is not required for the weight of cruelty to grow. Even if the arrogant feel no shame, even if they harden their hearts and silence the whispers of their conscience, the burden accumulates all the same. The laws of heaven do not rely on the recognition of the guilty. They operate beyond awareness, beyond denial. The weight increases not because the arrogant acknowledge it, but because divine justice demands it. The beauty of this truth is that the pure-hearted need not carry the burden of vengeance. They need not soil their hands trying to repay evil for evil. Life, in its quiet wisdom, ensures that the heavy load of cruelty finds its rightful owner. There will come a day, not marked on any calendar, not announced with trumpets, when the weight becomes too great to bear. The arrogant will feel their steps falter under the invisible yoke they built with their own hands. The false confidence that once propelled them forward will crumble, and their cruelty will return to them, not as a fleeting memory, but as a crushing reality. And when that day arrives, they will look back at the path they carved with their arrogance, only to see the wreckage they left behind. They will feel the echoes of the tears they caused, reverberating in their own lives. Their victories will turn to dust in their mouths, and the pleasures they once relished will rot into bitterness. This is not punishment born of malice. It is the natural weight of hidden cruelty, coming home to its master. You, who have been hurt by their hands, may not see this unfolding immediately. The world has a way of hiding the slow unraveling of the wicked. But rest assured, the weight they carry is growing heavier with each passing day. Their laughter may still echo in your mind, their mockery may still sting in your memory, but the scales are quietly tipping. Their steps, though steady now, are leading them toward a reckoning they cannot escape. The pure are tested, but never forgotten. There is a piercing loneliness that accompanies the journey of the pure-hearted, especially when they find themselves betrayed by those they once held close. It feels as if the very heavens have turned away, as if their cries for justice are swallowed by an indifferent sky. They look at the paths of the arrogant and see them paved with ease and triumph, while their own feet bleed upon stones of hardship and sorrow. The weight of this injustice presses deeply upon their souls, making them wonder if goodness is truly seen, if purity truly matters in a world that seems to reward the opposite. There are moments, long, heavy moments, when the pure question their worth. Have you ever sat in silence, staring at the walls that now feel more like cages than shelter, and asked yourself why your heart, so open and sincere, was met with betrayal? Why your kindness was repaid with cruelty? Why your loyalty was seen as weakness by those you trusted? These moments carve deep scars into the soul, invisible to the eyes of the world but burning brightly in the chambers of the heart. The agony of feeling forgotten is perhaps the greatest trial of the pure. It is not merely the pain of betrayal, but the suffocating sense that their suffering has gone unnoticed, that their tears have fallen into a bottomless void. And yet, This is the very crucible where their strength is forged. Though it feels like abandonment, it is in fact preparation. For the pure are never truly forgotten. They are held in the quiet grip of divine attention, watched over not with indifference, but with an intensity that surpasses human understanding. It is a hard truth to accept, especially when the arrogant parade their false victories. But the trials of the pure are not signs of their insignificance. They are the marks of their significance. The fire that refines gold burns hotter than the fire that consumes straw, and so it is with the souls of the pure. They are tested not because they are worthless, but because they are destined for a weight of glory that cannot be carried by the untested. There is a hidden wisdom in the delays of justice. While the arrogant build their fragile towers of pride, the pure are being anchored deeply into the bedrock of true strength. Every tear shed in silence waters the roots of their resilience. Every sleepless night strengthens the foundations of their eventual rise. Though unseen, these roots grow strong beneath the surface, preparing them to withstand storms that will topple the proud with ease. Have you noticed how even in your lowest moments, a flicker of strength refuses to die within you? How, despite the pain, you continue to rise each day, bearing wounds that would have destroyed a lesser spirit. This is no accident. It is the evidence that you are being held, molded, and remembered by hands far greater than your own. The universe has not overlooked your pain. It has stored every moment of it, preparing to exchange it for a harvest of restoration. So while the arrogant laugh today, thinking themselves triumphant, and while you, the pure-hearted, endure the storm, understand this: you are not forgotten. You are being refined, strengthened, and prepared for a day when the scales will tip and the world will witness the beauty of a soul that withstood the flames without being consumed. Pride prepares its own fall. There is a peculiar blindness that comes with pride. It convinces the arrogant that they are invincible, that they have outwitted not only men, but even the very laws that govern life itself. In the beginning, pride feels like a cloak of invulnerability. It drapes itself around their shoulders, whispering lies of superiority into their ears, telling them they are above consequences, beyond accountability, immune to the reach of justice. They believe with a terrifying certainty that the pain they have caused to the pure will never circle back to touch them. But pride is a builder of false towers. Every moment of mockery, every cruel word spoken to wound the innocent, every act of betrayal and deception becomes another brick in a tower they erect for themselves. From this height, they look down upon those they once hurt, mistaking their distance from the ground for safety. Yet they do not understand the very thing that elevates them is the same structure that will one day betray them. The higher pride lifts them, the further they have to fall. The pure-hearted often watch this ascent with bewilderment and pain. They see the arrogant flaunting their victories, living lives seemingly untouched by consequence, while they themselves struggle beneath the weight of wounds inflicted without mercy. They wonder why the proud prosper, why those who harm the innocent appear to thrive, but what they cannot always see is that this elevation is not a reward, it is a setup. It is not protection, but preparation. Pride lulls its bearer into a false sense of security, puffing them up until they are blinded by their own height. Have you ever seen a tree struck by lightning? For years it grows taller and taller, stretching proudly toward the sky, unaware that its height has made it the perfect target for the coming storm. So it is with the arrogant. Their pride positions them at the center of the storm, where justice, like lightning, can strike with precision. And when it does, the collapse is swift and total. The arrogant, in their blindness, fail to recognize the warning signs. They interpret delay as denial, mistaking the patience of divine justice for its absence. they continue their ascent, believing themselves untouchable. Meanwhile, their tower of pride grows more unstable with each passing day, with every secret cruelty committed against the pure. They are architects of their own ruin, laying the foundations of collapse while believing they are constructing a monument to their success. What is even more tragic is that they cannot see the cracks forming beneath them. The scaffolding of arrogance is deceptive, hiding its weaknesses until it is too late. And when the fall begins, it is not gradual, it is sudden, brutal, and complete. The same pride that once elevated them now ensures there is no safe descent, no gentle landing. It betrays them utterly, just as they once betrayed the trust of the pure. For the pure-hearted who have suffered at their hands, this truth offers a quiet vindication. It is not born out of vengeance but of understanding. To witness the inevitable downfall of the proud is to see the universe restore its balance, to see the hidden justice of life unfold before their eyes. It reminds them that pride is not a shield, it is a curse disguised as a crown. Divine justice moves quietly but strikes swiftly. There is a mysterious patience in the way divine justice operates, a patience that often feels unbearable to those who have been wronged. To the pure-hearted, it can seem as if heaven itself is silent, as if the cries of the wounded fall upon deaf ears, while the arrogant march forward unchecked. They look at the ones who hurt them, thriving, smiling, living without apparent consequence, and they ask in the quiet corners of their soul, why does justice delay? Why does retribution not arrive in the same moment the wound is inflicted? What they may not realize is that divine justice is not hurried because it is not uncertain. It moves with quiet deliberation, gathering every fact, every hidden act, every silent cry. While the arrogant believe they have escaped, justice is at work, constructing its case with a precision beyond human comprehension. There is no need for haste, because justice knows its target cannot escape its reach. It allows the proud to continue their path, all the while weaving the strands of consequence around them tighter and tighter. The arrogant mistake this quietness for weakness. In their blindness, they see no visible retaliation and assume none will come. They boast of their unchecked actions. They swell with confidence, unaware that they are walking deeper into the snare. Divine justice does not announce its arrival with noise or chaos. It waits for the precise moment when the arrogant are most vulnerable, when their defenses are down, and when they least expect it. For those who have suffered, this timing may feel cruel. It feels like too long a wait, too heavy a burden to carry while justice seems absent. But consider this: what is built quickly often collapses just as swiftly, but what is constructed carefully stands unshaken. Divine justice is not about mere punishment, it is about completion. It waits until the proud have filled their measure of arrogance, until their actions have fully exposed their character. Then, and only then, does it move. Not with hesitation, but with decisive, unstoppable force. Have you ever observed the way a predator waits for the perfect moment to strike? It does not rush its attack, but studies, watches, and calculates until the prey has no avenue of escape. Such is the way of divine justice. Silent but sure, it positions itself so that when it moves, it does so with precision, and when it strikes, the impact is total. The proud, who believed they were beyond reach, find themselves caught in a judgment they never saw coming. This is why it is said that justice delayed is not justice denied, it is justice perfected. While the pure-hearted endure the long nights of unanswered pain, justice is not idle. It is preparing. It is ensuring that when it acts, its actions are so complete, so undeniable, that even the arrogant themselves must acknowledge its hand. For the pure-hearted, understanding this brings a quiet strength. It teaches them that silence is not absence, that delay is not abandonment. It assures them that justice, though it moves quietly, is never still, and when it moves like a storm that cannot be outrun. The scorned become the witnesses of retribution. There is a peculiar, almost sacred irony woven into the fabric of life. Those who have been scorned, mocked, and pushed aside often become the very witnesses to the downfall of those who once tormented them. Life, in its quiet orchestration, positions the wounded not as forgotten souls left behind in the shadows, but as front-row witnesses to the unraveling of the arrogant. It is as if the universe, in its silent wisdom, ensures that those who were forced to swallow their cries will one day see justice unfold with their own eyes. In the moments of deep pain, it is hard to imagine such a reversal. When betrayal cuts the deepest, the wounded feel invisible, discarded like broken pottery swept aside and left in the dust. They wonder if their suffering will ever be acknowledged, if the hands that inflicted such wounds will ever feel the weight of guilt, shame, or divine consequence. Their hearts ache, not only from the pain inflicted upon them, but from the fear that their pain will be lost to time, unnoticed and unavenged. Have you not felt this yourself? Have you not questioned in the depth of your suffering whether justice would ever rise to meet your pain? Have you not feared that the arrogant, emboldened by their momentary triumph, would continue their march unchallenged, while you were left to tend to wounds they never cared to notice? These questions, heavy and relentless, echo in the hearts of the pure. They gnaw at the soul during sleepless nights and silent prayers. But life, though it moves quietly, is never careless. The arrogant believe they have escaped the gaze of justice simply because they see no immediate retaliation. They mistake the quiet endurance of the scorned as weakness, failing to realize that the one who suffers silently is often the one who rises stronger. And while they continue their careless ascent, weaving more harm into their path, they do not see the slow turning of the wheel. A wheel that always turns, no matter how long it seems to rest. The moment arrives when the wheel completes its circle. Without fanfare, without grand announcements, the tides shift. The same eyes that once watched in anguish begin to witness the quiet undoing of the proud. And it is not a distant event, not a tale heard from afar. No, it is personal, intimate, undeniable. The scorned are placed in positions where they cannot help but see what unfolds. They watch as those who belittled them stumble under the weight of their own actions. They observe not out of spite, but with a complex mix of emotions. Sorrow for wasted potential, perhaps, but also a deep and quiet satisfaction that justice is alive. There is a unique healing that takes place in this witnessing. It is not revenge that soothes the wounded heart, but the affirmation that their pain was never invisible, that the universe, or the divine hand guiding it, never turned a blind eye. There is power in seeing the arrogant brought low, not because it erases the past wounds, but because it restores balance to the scales that once seemed hopelessly tilted. What makes this moment even more profound is that the scorned, through their suffering, have developed eyes that see with greater clarity. They understand the cost of arrogance better than anyone. They have lived through its consequences firsthand. So when they witness the downfall of the proud, they do not gloat mindlessly. Rather, they recognize the deeper meaning behind the fall. They see it as a living testament to the unbreakable law that no cruelty goes unanswered, no betrayal is left unresolved. Have you ever noticed how life has a way of placing you exactly where you need to be, even when you cannot see the pattern? Perhaps you have crossed paths with those who once wounded you, only to find them burdened by the very pain they once projected onto you. Perhaps you have heard of their struggles, felt the weight of their regrets echoing through stories told by others. These moments are not coincidences. They are the unfolding of justice, and you are meant to witness them. For the scorned, this witnessing serves as both closure and clarity. It reinforces the truth that suffering was never their final chapter. It reminds them that while they endured pain with grace, life itself was quietly weaving a narrative of restoration. They become living proof that patience is not weakness, that silent endurance is not defeat, but rather the soil in which justice grows strong roots. Even more, the scorned become storytellers. They carry within them a narrative far richer than mere survival. Their story is one of pain endured and justice witnessed. A story that inspires others who are still in the midst of their trials. Through their testimony, they give voice to the silent sufferers, showing them that the night does not last forever, and that the dawn brings with it a reckoning for those who once walked in arrogant cruelty. And so, life ensures that the tables do not merely turn, they turn with purpose. The once scorned do not simply survive, they rise as witnesses to the great balancing of the scales, carrying with them a deep, unshakable understanding that no injustice is eternal, and that the eyes which once watched in sorrow are destined to see justice unfold before them. God elevates the humble after the storm. There is an undeniable truth woven through the history of human experience. The ones who walk humbly through the storms of life are often the very souls God raises when the tempest has passed. The humble do not seek attention, nor do they demand recognition. They do not trumpet their virtues, nor do they clamor for the world's applause. Instead, they move quietly beneath the weight of their burdens, trusting in a justice that cannot be hurried and a strength not their own. And though the storm batters them fiercely, though the winds of betrayal and cruelty lash against their tender spirits, they do not fall. They bend, yes, they tremble, they even bleed, but they do not fall. In the quiet agony of their suffering, the humble carry wounds that no one sees. Behind their eyes lies a history of silent battles. Nights filled with tears unshared, prayers whispered into empty rooms, hopes that flickered dimly in the suffocating winds of despair. They have walked through seasons of abandonment, their hearts breaking beneath the weight of questions they dared not voice aloud. Why did kindness invite cruelty? Why did their loyalty attract betrayal? Why did their love seem to be a magnet for harm? Have you ever found yourself asking these questions, caught between your aching heart and a heaven that seemed distant? Have you ever felt as though your goodness had been used against you? As though your humility had been mistaken for weakness? As though your gentle spirit had been trampled by those too arrogant to see its worth? If so, then understand this. Every tear, every silent cry, every quiet endurance has not been wasted. It has been seen, counted, and treasured by the one who watches over the humble with unwavering attention. The arrogant believe that humility is a posture of defeat. They see the bowed head and the quiet spirit and assume it is a sign of surrender. They mistake patience for powerlessness, meekness for fragility, and in their blindness they continue to wound the humble, believing there will never be a day of reckoning. But what they fail to see is that humility is not a position of weakness, it is a position of preparation. The humble are not lying broken in the dust. They are rooted deeply in the soil of endurance, ready to rise when the storm passes. While the arrogant build towers of pride that crumble in the first fierce wind, the humble are like ancient trees, their roots running deep beneath the surface, anchoring them against the gales of life. Though their branches may sway, though their leaves may be stripped away, their foundation remains unshaken. And when the skies clear, when the thunder quiets and the rain ceases, it is the humble who remain standing, stronger than before. their scars not marks of defeat, but of survival. There is a profound beauty in the way God lifts the humble. He does not do so with noise or spectacle. He does not elevate them to prove a point to the world, but to fulfill a deeper promise written into the fabric of existence, that those who suffer with grace will be raised with honor. He takes the broken pieces of their lives and crafts them into something extraordinary, something that stands as a testament to resilience, to quiet strength, to unwavering faith. Have you noticed how, even in your darkest moments, a quiet strength has pulsed beneath your pain? A strength that defies explanation, that carries you through days when you thought you could not take another step. This is not your strength alone. It is the sustaining power of the one who prepares to lift you. He has held you in the palm of his hand, sheltering you through the storm. And now he prepares to raise you into the light that follows the darkness. When God elevates the humble, he does not simply restore them to where they were before the storm. He lifts them higher, placing them upon ground they never thought they would reach. He vindicates their suffering, not just by ending it, but by transforming it into the very foundation of their rise. The pain they endured becomes the soil in which their blessings grow. The tears they shed water the roots of future triumphs. And the humility that once felt like a burden becomes the very reason for their elevation. The arrogant cannot understand this mystery. They believe power comes from pride, from domination, from loud declarations of self-importance. But true power, enduring power, comes from quiet strength, from patience, from the humility to endure suffering without losing oneself. It is this quiet power that God honors, this strength beneath the surface that he chooses to elevate. So while the arrogant fall from the heights of their self-made thrones, bewildered by the collapse they never anticipated, the humble rise from the ashes of their trials, not because they demanded it, but because they were prepared for it. Their rise is not forced. It is natural, inevitable, ordained. And when they rise, they carry with them a wisdom forged in suffering, a strength tested in fire, and a humility that shines brighter than any crown of arrogance ever could. The story ends in divine victory. There is an undeniable longing that lives deep within the hearts of those who have suffered at the hands of the arrogant. It is not merely the desire for relief from pain, nor simply the hope for healing of wounds unseen. It is something far greater, far more profound. It is the yearning for the story to make sense, for the tale of their suffering to unfold into a conclusion where justice is not only served, but witnessed. Deep down, every pure soul longs for the assurance that the chapters of their pain are not the end of their story. They hope, sometimes in silence, that the author of life himself has not finished writing their pages. The arrogant, however, believe themselves to be the authors of every narrative. They assume that their cruelty is the final word, their dominance the closing chapter. In their blindness, they write their chapters in ink they think is permanent. They look upon the devastation they've caused with a sense of triumph, as if the pain inflicted upon the pure is the period that closes the book. But they do not understand the nature of divine authorship. They do not realize that while they may scribble with selfish hands, there is a far greater hand that holds the pen, and he never allows the arrogant to write the ending. For the humble, for those who have endured seasons of betrayal, abandonment, and sorrow, it feels at times as if the story is stuck in a cruel chapter. They look at the pages of their lives, stained with tears, torn by disappointments, and they wonder if perhaps their tale will end in sorrow. They watch the arrogant rise, page after page, their victories unfolding like an endless parade, while their own steps seem weighed down by chains of injustice. In those moments, it is easy to believe that the story has been hijacked. that their suffering has swallowed the possibility of a victorious ending. But life has a rhythm deeper than appearances. Hidden beneath the surface of each moment is the steady unfolding of divine design. Every betrayal you endured was not the end of the story, it was merely a plot twist. Every insult, every dismissal of your worth, every silent night spent questioning your value was not a conclusion, but a build-up to something greater. Stories that begin with suffering often end with triumph, and those written by the hands of heaven follow this pattern without fail. Have you ever stood at the edge of despair and felt a flicker of hope, so faint that it almost seemed imaginary? That flicker is not an accident. It is the whisper of the divine author reminding you that the final pages have not yet been turned. He writes slowly, deliberately, with a wisdom that stretches beyond human understanding. He weaves together the threads of your pain, your endurance, and your quiet faith, crafting a conclusion that will leave no doubt of his justice. The pure-hearted, though battered by storms, are never written out of the story. In fact, they are its central characters. The arrogant are but passing figures, momentary shadows that believe themselves to be the sun. They strut across the stage, blinded by their brief spotlight, failing to see that the curtain is already beginning to fall on their part of the play. Meanwhile, the humble, though they feel invisible in the moment, are being prepared for the grand scene that awaits them. What is most remarkable is how the story unfolds in a way that no one expects. The downfall of the arrogant comes not from the hand of the humble, but from the weight of their own actions. Like a house built without a foundation, their lives collapse inward, undone by the very bricks they laid with arrogance. And the pure, who watched from the shadows, are called forward into the light, not because they forced their way, but because the story was always written for their rise. Have you not seen glimpses of this already? Small moments where the arrogant falter under burdens they once forced upon others. Instances where the truth rises to the surface, exposing their deceptions, stripping away their false power. These are not random happenings. They are the early sentences of the final chapter. They are the signals that the story is shifting, that justice is gathering its strength, preparing to bring the narrative to its rightful close. The divine victory is not rushed because it is certain. Its power lies in its inevitability. There is no force that can rewrite what has been decreed by the hand of the Almighty. No scheme of man, no web of lies, no display of false power can alter the ending he has ordained. And when that victory unfolds, it will do so in a manner so complete, so undeniable, that all who witness it will see the hand of justice at work. For you, the one who has suffered, this truth breathes life into weary bones. It tells you that your endurance was not wasted, your patience was not in vain. You are not trapped in a tragedy, you are living through a masterpiece in progress. And though the arrogant believed they could write your ending, they will soon discover they were merely characters in a story far greater than themselves. So now, as you sit with these truths resting upon your heart, let them sink deeper than the pain you once carried. Let them echo louder than the silence that followed your cries. Understand, not with your mind alone, but with the full weight of your spirit, that your journey was never overlooked. Your tears were not wasted, your endurance was not forgotten. You walked through fire, and though you felt the flames licking at your heels, you were being refined, not consumed. The arrogant who once stood tall in their cruelty believed themselves untouchable. They mistook the quiet of justice for its absence, but life is patient and God is precise. The seeds of their own downfall were planted by their very hands, and they grow even now, ripening toward an inevitable harvest. You need not lift a finger against them, for their collapse has been set in motion by their own arrogance. They are the architects of their ruin, while you, in your humility, are the builder of a future far greater than your pain. There will come a moment, and it may arrive sooner than you think, when you will see with your own eyes what your heart has longed to witness. You will watch as the weight of their deeds crushes the proud beneath the load they thought they could carry. And in that moment you will not rise out of bitterness, but with the quiet dignity of one who always knew justice would prevail. You will rise because it was always written for you to do so. And as you rise, let there be no shadow of hatred in your heart. Let your victory be clean, your spirit unburdened. Carry with you the wisdom that comes from having endured, and wear your scars not as marks of defeat, but as emblems of survival and strength. Let your story be a testimony, not only of pain, but of the undeniable triumph that follows it. You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by what you have become because of it, stronger, wiser, unshaken, and above all, you are living proof that while the arrogant may rise for a moment, it is the pure-hearted who stand victorious when the dust finally settles. Hold this truth close. God breaks down the arrogant who harm the pure, but he raises up the pure in ways that the proud will never understand. This is the justice of life. This is the justice of heaven. Your story does not end in suffering. Your story ends in victory.